I thought playing healer was the hardest part about Final Fantasy XIV. Everyone made it seem like picking a healer class was something that you kind of had to be prepared for because it is so hard. And even when I played White Mage for the first time, I agreed with that. Until I tried Tank. Tank is by far the hardest. Are you kidding me? Does not even come close. And I chose Warrior, which I think is the easiest of the tank classes. I had no idea that tanks were these unsung heroes of the Final Fantasy XIV community, basically doing complicated choreography in every single dungeon, trial, and raid. And if you're watching this and you main tank and you're like, it's not that hard, it's not that bad, I think you're being modest. I think that tanks are like the essential workers of the party because when they're doing things right, it's hard to notice. But when the tank is doing things wrong, everybody feels it. Now, if you're new here, hi, my name is Heather. I started playing Final Fantasy XIV after Endwalker came out, blasted through the MSQ, loved it so much that I started this YouTube channel. Eventually, I took a break. And last summer, I picked it back up because my husband wanted to give Final Fantasy XIV a try. Now, when I first played, I did the whole thing with Dragoon, but when my husband started playing, I forgot how to play Dragoon since I had taken a break, and I thought that being healer would help us queue faster, so I decided to learn White Mage. You might have seen my video where I was talking about how hard it is to play healer, to play White Mage. When I watch that video now, I'm like, oh, you sweet summer child. So let me tell you why I think playing tank is the hardest class. Mind you, I am coming from the perspective of a Sprout. I am still very much a Sprout. I have not touched Dawn Trail at all because I'm waiting for Tom, my husband, to catch up. Obviously, he is a Sprout. Not only is this his first MMO, but it really is like, I think his third RPG ever. The only other MMO I've played is World of Warcraft, but I played it when Burning Crusade came out almost 20 years ago. So how relevant is that MMO experience now? So all that to say, Tom and I are very much still Sprouts, and we did not pick up 14 to play with other people. I know that sounds weird, especially if you play MMOs often, but I was told that you can play most of 14 solo. And so when I played the first time, I used the duty support and trust system every single chance I could. It wasn't until I started this YouTube channel where I started to play with other people. And even with my husband, he had no interest in the multiplayer aspect of it. We have a whole video about why he decided to play Final Fantasy XIV if you want to check that out. Point being is playing with other people is something that we found intimidating. Luckily, we have the Heather Just Play community, which has been so positive and supportive and encouraging. But aside from this community, right, and before this community came together, we definitely were not looking to play with anyone except each other. Now, when you're playing an MMO for the very first time, and I'm a gamer, right? Like, I have played video games all my life. My husband has not. So even I found Final Fantasy XIV to be extremely overwhelming at the start. And honestly, if it weren't for a free trial, I'm not sure if I would have stuck it out. Now, if you're playing Final Fantasy for the first time, or going through the MSQ for the first time, and you pick a DPS class, and you decide to party up with other people, the worst consequence is that the boss fights and the dungeons go a little bit slower. That's the worst consequence. Now, for healer, if you're new to the game and you picked a healer class, yes, people can feel your newbiness, but every other character has some kind of ability like second wind, or they can pop a potion, some kind of thing that they can do as a, oh shoot, I'm about to die. And if you're in a trial, there's going to be another healer. So probably, I don't know what the chances are of you partying with another newbie healer, but most of the times you're probably going to party with somebody who knows what they're doing, and they could probably cover your newbiness for you, where even if you did your best, right? Might not be the best way to do your healer, but even if you did your best, it'd be enough where no one had to die, no one had to wipe, you could still defeat the boss. Now imagine if you want to play this game solo, right? You don't want to play with other people. This is your first time playing Final Fantasy XIV, so every single dungeon and trial and raid is new. You decide to go into Duty Finder or Roulette, and you're going through, and after the first pull, you just see your name in the chat, followed by a comment about how you did something wrong and how you need to fix it. I can't explain to you how terrifying that feels, because it feels like you are doing everything wrong and everybody knows it. It's like deer in the headlights, being put on the spot, and it's like I just feel everyone looking at me. And I'm lucky because I picked up tank after the Heather Just Play community was formed. So I had literally the most positive and supportive people helping me learn this class. That's the environment I was learning it in, and it was still super intimidating and scary. My stomach would be all up in knots. I would be like totally drenched in sweat, and my heart rate was like racing even though I'm just sitting here playing a game. I remember thinking when I was learning Warrior, I was like, everybody lied to me. This is way harder than Healer. Now, let me give you an example. So this is a fight. This is a raid from A Realm Reborn. It's one of the oldest fights in the game, so I don't consider it a spoiler, but there are timestamps if you want to jump ahead. So let me set the scene for you. This is your first time playing Final Fantasy XIV. For some reason, you decided to pick tank as your very first class. Every single dungeon, every single trial, every single raid is your first, right? And you are somebody who wanted to avoid playing with people as much as possible, but you have gotten to the very end of A Realm Reborn and you keep getting this notification that says you cannot progress to Heaven's Ward. You can't complete A Realm Reborn until you do the Crystal Tower Raid Series. This is the first, I think, and only time that you were required to play big group content, as in playing with 23 other people. And the very first thing in this series is Labyrinth of the Ancients. Now, as you're going through the labyrinth, it's chaotic, but it's not so bad. You don't know any other class, so you don't know what you're doing wrong. For those of us who have done the Crystal Tower thousands of times, you know that we can probably get by with like 22 people. It's fine if 2 people just have no idea what they're doing. You don't know that though, because this is your first time. And you won't know that until you get to the final boss. Now, you happen to be in Alliance Group B, which I think is the default main tank. Actually, I'm not even sure if that's true. But if this is your first time playing with other people, you probably don't even know what main tank is. Main tank versus what? The answer is off tank, but you probably don't know that. So everyone's standing around, and probably someone will write in the chat, all right, B tank, you're up. And so you walk up to the boss, and you start attacking. But then this happens. "24 people wiped because of you. Because you did not know that you had to bring the boss to a specific point on the field so that everyone can see the visual cue of this guy walking back before he does a little supersonic move. How would you know that? The 23 other people? This honestly might be the 1000th time that they've done this. This is just part of their daily roulettes. You know, they're just queuing up. They have got this down. They can do it with their eyes closed. And collectively, you have just wasted whatever 23 times 10 minutes is. Now, for everyone else who's played the Crystal Tower thousands of times, you know this. The reason why the tank brings the boss to the edge of the battlefield is because he walks back to the center to do his supersonic boom move, right? So that gives everyone a visual cue when he's walking back towards the center, and it gives everyone enough time to run to their pads. If this is your first time in the raid, how would you know that? You wouldn't. And this is how I learned. I saw people mess up. It didn't even occur to me that the tank was doing something. I thought the boss walked to the edge automatically. Why would I think that somebody was pulling him there? Like, it just didn't even occur to me. And this has been happening through every single dungeon and every single boss fight I've ever done, the tank has been doing this tango dance with the boss, and I had no idea. I can't tell you like how mind blown I was to realize this. Even in the Praetorium, which I have done, I don't even know how many times, I didn't realize that Nero didn't automatically walk back to the middle. I didn't realize that when he went to the edge to do his little hammer move, that like he wasn't just programmed to go back to the middle of the board like Gaius does. He just walks back to the middle to do his little like Veni Vidi Vici or whatever, right? Like Nero, he will stay on the side. Somebody was supposed to dance with him to the center. Tank is also the class where you like kind of have to communicate, because what you will discover is that there's a thing called a main tank and an off tank, right? I still don't understand how the heck this is decided. I just kind of, there's always an eager beaver, you know, someone who wants to be tank. I don't want to say eager beaver, that makes it sound mean, but there's always someone who like just goes, and so I never go first. I'm like, you know what, buddy, if you want to go first, you go. Now, when I play with HJP and they know that I'm learning, they will make me go first. You guys will make me go first so that I can put in the reps and practice. But if I happen to be playing without you in roulette or whatever, I always wait for the other tank to go first. But even then, I can't tell you how many times I've been told, tanks, stop ping-ponging. I didn't even know what that meant. What does that mean? I know what it means now, but I didn't before. So as tank, not only do you need to know your abilities, like turn your tank stance on, whatever, you have to know the layout of the dungeon, how many mobs your party can handle, like how many you can pull at a time, all the mechanics, all the moves of the boss. Like you will know when your tank doesn't know those things. Your whole party will feel it. DPS, healer, doesn't matter. Now, what I will say is now that I've played every single class type, I've played healer, DPS, and tank. And for DPS, I have played one of each type, like ranged and caster and melee and all that. Now that I've played different types of classes, I think I can actually say that tank is my favorite. At this stage where it's not my first time going into the dungeons, it really does add a challenge, a layer of complexity that makes it super fun. It like changed the game where it felt like a different approach. It wasn't like, you know, you just turned on the difficulty and everything got harder or anything like that. But it was almost like a different take on everything, every single fight. And after I played warrior, you know, I'm on the quest to try to level up every single class to 100. I switched to summoner, and when I was playing summoner, I found myself wanting to go back to warrior. Like going from warrior to summoner, it felt, I don't know, I just really missed the complexity. I missed being the one who was leading the dungeons. I missed how important the job felt. And honestly, in some ways, the tank sometimes has it easier during boss fights because everyone else kind of has to avoid mechanics that the tank doesn't really have to. Like once you keep aggro, you just have to keep aggro, right? You avoid the mechanics there and there, but I feel like sometimes it's harder for the other classes. I'm genuinely curious for my own future video, once I get every class to 100, which class I can say is my favorite. But right now, I do have to say, I'm very partial towards warrior. It's so much fun. You know, it feels like it matches with what I'm looking for in this game. It's fun to play. I feel strong. I love swinging this axe around. I don't know. It's fun. I actually like thinking about all the different abilities I can do depending on what's happening, right? It's not just one rotation. I think this is what I also liked about White Mage, is that like with DPS, I feel like you kind of just have to do your rotation. But with healer and tank, you have to react based on what's happening. So yeah, you have your rotation, but you know, if I don't know, if the boss is about to do this particular move, you have to adapt, right? Or if you're down a party member, you have to adapt. Again, I've been lucky because I got to learn and practice Warrior with a Heather Just Play community. And if you are looking for a positive, supportive community of gamers, we'd love to have you. We have a link to our Discord over on our website at heatherjustplay.com. I have to do the shameless plug there. The thing that I am still learning with Tank is the different abilities. They do all kind of sound very similar with just different numbers and different percentages of, like the mitigation things. It's like, well, this is 10%, that's 20%, or this lasts 10 seconds and that lasts 20 seconds, or the cooldown's longer. It's like, I'm still trying to figure out when to use what. I will say, when I switched to Warrior, I feel like a badass, I'm like, dude, this is fun. See, it's fun. It is fun. It can be fun. It will be fun. But it's definitely the hardest class. It is not, I would not recommend Tank for somebody who's playing Final Fantasy XIV for the first time, especially if this is like your first MMO, right? Your first type of this game, where if you're gonna, you are going to have to play with some people at some point. You don't always have to play with people. Majority of the time you can play solo. When you don't know what you're doing and it's your first time, people will tell you. And if you're cool with that, awesome. But if you're anxious like me, I would go with a DPS. Now, in my video where I talked about how difficult White Mage was, I asked for some advice on how I can play White Mage better. And here I'd like to do the same thing. So if you have any best practices, I think I got the best practices in terms of playing Tank overall down. But if you have any best practices or tips or advice regarding Warrior, I would really appreciate it. I think I am at the point where I can actually make sense of your feedback. For White Mage, I was still so new to coming back to the game and so new to that class that a lot of the comments I was reading, I was like, these are words. I don't know what they mean. But my Warrior is at level 100. Again, I never really play content above level 90 because I'm not in Dawn Trail yet. So if you're going to explain abilities that are higher than level 90, not going to make sense to me. But yeah, for 89 down, if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear it. And shout out to all you Tank mains out there over here doing Heidelin's work. I had freaking no idea. I'll never get over it. I thought all that was programmed. I had no idea that you were doing this dance every single dungeon, every single battle. It's just, thank you. Thank you for what you do. And lastly, huge shout out to the Heather Just Play community. Thank you guys for answering the call. I literally put out a message like a few hours before in Discord asking for help from 22 other people to record that scene in Labyrinth of the Ancients, and everyone showed up. It's so fun doing a raid with people that you know. I want to do raids like that all the time. So if you want to learn more about the Heather Just Play community, you can check out our website at heatherjustplay.com. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!